Okay. So you started running consistently in 2013, is that correct?
2013, I signed up for my first road race, the end of 2013. Now, to kind of touch on the fact that it was 2007, 2008 that I started running every day to kind of substitute my addiction problem. So I was running every day. Other than a couple of relapses, the running remained a huge part of my life. No organized events, but I was running all the time. Okay. When I went back to jail in 2013, it was for 6 months. I tried to run every single day out of those 6 months. Even when I didn't have sneakers, I had state boots and I was running in the yard every time they let me outside. So I used running not only as a mental escape, to stay fit, to stay sane, and to kind of, it gave me a reason for the future. I was like, I'm going to do this when I get out. I'm running every day now. I'm going to run every day when I get out because it's going to keep me away from drugs and alcohol. I was in jail when my girlfriend Louisa signed me up for the Bristol Colt State Park Half Marathon. So I was released from jail one weekend. The race was the following weekend. I went to a Marshall's and bought some Brooks sneakers off the clearance rack. Showed up for my first race and ran like a 1:46 or something. And I was so excited and I was so hooked that I didn't do a full in 2013. I did another half immediately in the spring, and then I found a full to sign up for, and it was later that October. So I had a whole kind of like a year to kind of train, or not really train. I didn't know what training was or marathon training was at that time. I just ran every day and put in a bunch of miles. I think my longest run was 17 before I ran my first full. And I had no idea what I was doing at my first full, but I fell in love with it.
Absolutely. So you talk about running, sobriety, and recovery in all the same breath. How does it interplay between running and staying sober?
I mean, I always so I've been really grateful. I'm grateful to have had opportunities to go out and speak to high school kids and stuff. And one of the things I like to touch on is if I knew at that age that there was a such thing as getting high off of life or getting a runner's high, because it doesn't have to be running. It could be weightlifting, it could be boxing, it could be yoga, it could be anything that's positive. It could be art, okay? It could be starting a business plan. Something that's going to give you adrenaline. Like my problem was I was always looking for a rush. And I found that rush in street hustling and cocaine use. If I had known that I could have found that rush in basketball, baseball, football, running, then I would have pursued it at a young age. I'm just so lucky that I found it at this age, and I've used it as my foundation for my sobriety. Running works for me. It's not for everybody. I don't expect everybody that's struggling with alcohol and drugs to just go sign up for a marathon and start a marathon training plan. It's not going to work for everybody. It happens to work for me because it's what you can get out of it, what you put into it. Do you know what I mean? I see what I get out of it when I train for 16 weeks. I see what I get out of it when I eat the right things for 90 days, all right? And I'm not eating extra pizza on a Friday night when I have a race the next weekend. I see the difference. So did that answer the question?
Yeah.
All right.
So do you consider those you run with and those who follow you on your social media, those who comment, to be part of your family in the journey through recovery? Does that keep bringing you back to the start line every weekend?
It kind of does. I get really excited when I notice. I joke around and say, so a lot of this is Instagram fueled, and I'm not afraid to say it. I'm fueled off of the likes and the comments and the positive feedback on Instagram. That's my primary platform. I'm on Facebook a lot as well, but I use the Instagram platform just because it's such an active community, an interactive community, and you don't follow things that you don't like. So the people that follow me love what I post. They love what I talk about. So it's always positive feedback. So I'm getting those pats on the back and those, hey Maurice, you look great, you're doing great. That helps. I'm not going to lie, it helps. I mean, there used to be a commercial And the kid said, "Oh, my selfie just got 100 likes. Can you believe it? 100 likes." And it's so funny because that commercial came out like right after the first time I got 100 likes on a picture, and I could kind of relate. And I get it. I've talked to people that are like, "Oh, it's just social media and you shouldn't be doing it for likes." I get it. But with mine, it's not just 100 likes. It's the fact that there's 100 people paying attention to the fact that I'm talking about recovery, addiction, sobriety, alcoholism, you know what I mean, running. And I'm not a fast runner, but people see me improving. People respect my consistency in my discipline. I don't consider myself a personal trainer or anything like that. My fitness level isn't where it could be. So does that make sense?
Absolutely.
So I do consider them my family, my friends, and there's several of them that have been, I joke around and say IG day ones, like they've been my friends since the day I started Instagram. And I've had a couple of real life connections based off of social media connections that have turned into real friendships.
So we're getting towards the end. So what is next for Maurice?
I would like to. I love the fact that I have a community, okay, and I never want to take that for granted. I have people that pay attention to what I'm doing every day, whether it's running, whether it's training for New York, whether it's landing a new job at the marketing firm. People are interested in following my journey. So I want to keep that journey about sobriety and recovery because I'm still a recovering drug addict, and if I act like I'm not, then I'll relapse. That's a reality. And B, I want to get better at delivering my message. My passion, other than running and becoming a better marathoner, I do want to one day say, hey, there's the guy that ran 200 marathons before he turned 50. I mean, I do kind of want to do that. I love the bragging rights aspect of it. I did 4 marathons in October last year just to say, hey, I did 4 marathons in October. It was pretty cool. And I would love to become a better public speaker and to reach a wider audience. My other passion is reaching high school kids because at that age, if I had someone that I could relate directly to, all of the people that told me marijuana was going to lead to other drugs, they look like they never did marijuana. They look like they never tried a drink. They look like they never experimented with drugs. So, and not to stereotype, but as a teenager, that's how you think. So I didn't really, and not to say that I can change somebody's life, but if I'm in a room with 30 kids and one kid is like, hey, I'm not going to smoke this weekend. I'm not going to, because I wasn't just smoking at 19. I was lacing my weed with cocaine because I thought I knew everything. So where I'm going with that is my passion is to reach the youth. I know I can get better at my message delivery, at public speaking, at making more of an impact. So the future for Maurice, I would love to become a better public speaker and just get better at delivering my message. And run a bunch of marathons.
Of course.
And maybe one day become Iron Panda.
Oh,
yeah.
yeah.
You like that?
Ooh.
Instead of Marathon Panda. That would require a bike and swim lessons.
It would. I've been trying to get in triathlons as well.
Cool.
So everyone knows you as an optimistic, positive person, never-ending source of all of that, especially on the roads of Rhode Island when they were doing races. What has made you that person that you are today?
I love that question. It's very, very, very easy for me to be super grateful at all times, only because I've hit those rock bottoms, okay? I've lived in a homeless shelter. I've been bitten by bed bugs at that homeless shelter. I've had my only cell phone stolen at that homeless shelter. I've woken up in jail hungry, gone to eat in that jail, and gone back to my cell still hungry because what they feed you is inadequate, okay? I've been in positions where I'm in a situation where I don't want to be. I'm uncomfortable because I'm around people that I feel uncomfortable around, but I put myself in that situation. I've been without because of my choices, and I've also experienced near death twice. And like I said, I never want to come across as like I think I'm super spiritual, but the second time that I ended up in the back of an ambulance, I really feel like I kind of saw a light, okay? When I woke up, it didn't snap me out of it because I used again, but having those experiences, now I know. Like, I could wake up tomorrow and I could focus on the fact that I'm 40, I don't own a house, I never started a business. I could focus on all those negatives, or I could wake up tomorrow and be like, I used to be a vicious drug addict, now I'm clean and sober, everybody loves me at the race course, I'm healthy, I'm alive, I can pick up a book tonight, read it, and absorb the knowledge. So it's so easy for me to get hyped up, positive, and be grateful because I'm, like, I have so much. Do you know what I mean? My parents are still around. I'm healthy, I'm able. If I want to become a 3.5 hour marathoner, then I just need to stop eating pizza and cookies and start training a little bit harder. Like, I can do it. Do you know what I mean? If I want to get a master's degree, then I need to buckle down and start taking night classes for the next 8 to 10 years. It's not unrealistic. It's not impossible. So I'm passionate about the fact that, like, anything is possible, okay? And the fact that I was able to come up from a homeless shelter with nothing and kind of brush myself off and take steps. You know what I mean? When I went to the job interview for the sales job, it was with the shirt and tie that I bought from the Salvation Army. Like, you know what I mean? So I know what type of potential I still have. So instead of focusing on all of the potential I've wasted, I focus on the positive. So it's really easy for me to stay positive. Sometimes it causes a little bit of friction between my girlfriend and I, because if things are going a little bad with the finances at home, it's very easy for me to say, well, we can't afford steak and potatoes, but we have peanut butter and jelly, like that kind of thing. Because to me, peanut butter and jelly is better than nothing, but maybe she deserves steak and potatoes. And it's not I'm not being literal, but does that make sense? Like, so we're not homeless. The lights, the gas, and the electric's on. You know what I mean? We might not have food in the refrigerator, but the lights are on. So I always look at the brighter side of things.
I love that. This gets more into, like, the overall topic I'm covering.
Okay.
What do you believe the state of Rhode Island should do to fight substance abuse, the opioid epidemic that we're currently seeing?
It's a great question. A lot of it is education and prevention. Once again, like, I just think there needs to be more hands-on, maybe some, like, scared straight tactics. Like, maybe if somebody took me to a prison when I was younger, maybe if someone showed me a drug addict overdosing or showed me the back of an ambulance, I don't know, because when they put I always touch on stuff like this. They'd put the smashed car in front of the high school and say, this is what happens when you drink and drive. Well, when you're at that age, you don't think like that. I used to think that's never going to happen to me. That doesn't happen to us. If you were my friend and we were out drinking, we weren't thinking about crashing the car and having a fatality, okay? That's not how you thought. Kids think they're invincible. I think there needs to be some hands-on, like, scare tactics / education to let kids know they're not invincible. If somebody took me by the hand and beat it into me, not literally, but at the age where I was starting to experiment with weed, if I saw the devastation of hardcore drug... So that's another thing. Growing up in the suburbs, I never saw the effects of hardcore drug use. I didn't know what a crack pipe was. Do you know what I mean? I meet kids now that have grown up around that stuff. They've had a mom or dad that used crack, so they would never do it because they've seen it. I never saw it. So it was always easy for me to experiment with the next thing because I never saw the devastating results. It's easy for kids to get their hands on substances these days. I mean, I have a lot of opinions. I think the music has a lot to do with it because it's so glorified, drug use, prostitution, strip clubs, all that. Everything from the music. A lot of it is education. You know what I mean? You can't tell a kid that's listening to Gucci Mane not to listen to Gucci Mane, but Gucci Mane is talking about cocaine dealing, strip clubs, and at a certain age, people think that that's normal and acceptable. Do you know what I mean? The opioid crisis is because prescription drugs are so it's so acceptable. If you tripped on your way to your car tonight, and God forbid you broke a bone, and you have full medical coverage, and you've never showed any history of drug abuse, when you go to the doctor, they're probably going to prescribe you a pretty strong pain med, okay? Because you don't probably pose a threat of someone that's going to abuse it. They're going to give it to you and they're going to tell you to use it as prescribed. Well, let's say you use it as prescribed. Let's say tomorrow you're in more pain than you were today and you take 2 pills instead of 3. Let's say you run out and the doctor says you can't get prescribed. I know I'm being very stereotypical and very general, but it happens. So now you can't get the pills that were prescribed to you, but you know somebody that has pills, all right? You know a guy named Maurice, he always has pills. You call him. Oh yeah, I got the pills. They're only $5 a piece, all right? Now the next time they're $10 a piece because they know that you want them. The next time they say they don't have them, but they got something for $20 that's just as good. And the switch from being hooked on prescription drugs to being hooked on something like heroin, it's just like that. People that say I'll never touch it, I'll never do it, that doesn't happen to me, that doesn't affect me, all of those, what's the word I'm looking for, like the inhibitions, all of those go away when you're addicted to something. And I don't have enough education on the subject to make like an educated debate, but the pharmaceutical companies play a huge role in it, the prescription meds play a huge role in it. The easy access to like things like Xanax and stuff like that. Like if you were a kid that was into partying, I'm sure you could get your hands on some painkillers. Do you know what I mean? So education, prevention, those would be my biggest things.
Yeah. And I think I've never never smoked, never done any kind of drugs, never alcohol. I think that's because I've been surrounded by it a lot with my uncle. I grew up going to my uncle's house like almost every day.
Okay.
And him and his wife would, with my cousin who was young and their 2 daughters, they'd smoke in the house all the time. And now when I smell smoke, I absolutely love it because I associate it with childhood.
Okay.
But I never tried it because I've seen the effects
You've
of
seen the effects, okay.
Same with alcohol and all of that. So I think that's what I owe it to, is that I didn't grow up in an area per se where that was normal, but some of
But
my
you
family
saw
members
it,
were
yeah.
normal. It made it normal. Do you believe Rhode Island is on the right track, is heading in the right direction with this education and these initiatives? Rhode Island Hospital just got a $12 million grant to establish its own center to tackle the opioid crisis.
I think that the fact that they're talking about it, yes. I just recently myself got hooked up with the East Providence Prevention Coalition, and they have people like health teachers from the East Providence School Department that really care about the kids staying off drugs. I think it's getting the kids to relate to somebody. And I don't want to sound like I'm patting myself on the back, but I've had a lot of positive feedback when I can talk to the kids and be like, hey, listen, I'm not that different from you. Like, my mom and dad are middle class. I grew up in a normal house. I'm half black. I'm half white. Like, I had trouble fitting in. I had trouble thinking I was cool in 10th and 11th grade. Kids made fun of me for certain things. Like, so I try to be as relatable as possible. I know that in 2018, you're going to have a handful of people that are going to argue for the benefits of medical marijuana, and they're going to argue for the legalization of marijuana. It's hard for me to be on that side because I know how devastating starting with marijuana can be. For you, maybe you try a joint in your senior year of college, you don't like it, you never touch it again. Maybe you try smoking weed for 1 semester and you never touch anything else. And you grow out of it. Maybe you smoke all throughout college and you grow out of it. Everybody's different. For me, smoking was never enough. It was always, what's next? Oh, you have pills? Oh, you have liquor? Oh, you have cocaine? Do you know what I mean? So with me, marijuana was a gateway because it led me to be around the people that did drugs, around the people that party. I know I'm getting a kind of a little bit off topic, but to me, letting kids know that marijuana does lead to other drugs. Not only does it lead to other drugs, it has devastating effects at a young age. So once again, I'm not educated enough to make like a huge debate on it. But if you're 15 years old, you shouldn't be smoking weed. It's killing brain cells. It's sucking away ambition and drive and motivation and stuff. And I firmly believe that. So to answer your question, do I think Rhode Island's on the right track? Yes, because it's they're open about it. I've been to a couple of meetings where people they have a drug take back day. They know about things like maybe you have a grandmother that has Vicodins from 2007 in her medicine cabinet. She doesn't even know there's 100 of them up there. Okay, but your little cousin knows. He's only been to the house once and he saw it. Now he goes and tries Vicodins for the first time. Do you know what I mean? So I know that there's things like that we could improve, just education overall. But I think Rhode Island's on the right track because we talk about it and they realize there's a problem. I see money getting awarded to the right places and stuff like that. Someone brought up a good point recently. I think that as far as the aftercare goes, the immediate aftercare. So for example, when I was taken away in the back of an ambulance, I'm not offended ever. I would never get offended. I'm not like easily shaken. But I was treated more like a criminal than a medical patient. Does that make sense? Here, because I was a drug addict. I overdosed on a heroin needle, so why should I get special treatment? However, if somebody was right there, and I think they're starting to implement this in our state, if someone that had a social working background, someone with compassion was there and was like, hey, Maurice, my name's Jordan, my name's Jeffrey, I care about you. Let's talk about your drug problem. Like, let's make sure this doesn't happen again. You know what I mean? I think stuff like that, is it going to work 100% of the time? Absolutely not. Is it going to work 30%, 40%, 50% of the time? I think so. So I think and I know that they're trying to do stuff like that in our state, where there's an immediate point of contact or an immediate source of aftercare that treats that overdose victim like a medical patient, like a mental medical patient. Does that mean, I'm not using the right terminology, but do you know what I mean? So yeah, I think that would be a huge step in the right direction because I've been there, and there's a huge criminal piece of it. They're kind of treating you like you just broke the law, which you did. If you were using heroin, it's against the law. But at the same time, to stop it from happening, you gotta kind of get it right there.
Absolutely. There's gonna be one last question. I think I'm gonna try to change.
How are we doing? Good?
Very good.
All right.